Hi, babe.
Hi.
We're back again after many weeks of travel
Yeah.
with an exciting topic today.
Yeah, I'm really curious to talk about this.
Yes, we're talking about my time in the world of pickup. And if you don't know what that is, it's just guys would go out and pick up women, whether that was on the street, in stores,
I'm sure
clubs,
a lot
bars.
of guys know about it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder if women probably have heard of it maybe, but some women probably don't know about it. And I'm curious to know how prevalent it is now. But yeah, I have a whole bunch of questions that I'm curious to ask you about.
Yeah. And just for context, like we've we've had conversations where I would bring up my time
Yeah.
in that
The before
world,
my time.
the before Karina time, when I was in that world, and just a lot of it won't be anything new, it won't be anything too surprising, but you know, full disclosure to the people listening, like this was a time where a lot of these things were okay. So I
Right.
do want to start there
Yeah.
because nowadays it wouldn't be okay.
Nowadays a lot of shit isn't okay.
Yeah, exactly. So
Everybody is so sensitive. I mean, that's one aspect of it. There are legitimately things that happened 10 years ago that legitimately are not okay today. But
yeah.
yeah. So
But I mean, yeah. So just like saying like certain ways that men would approach women, that's where I want to start. Like
maybe even a trigger warning.
trigger warning, exactly. So like
This may be uncomfortable to hear.
this may be uncomfortable to hear on what I used to go to events, I used to do all these things within this community. And some of this was, I mean, and I'm speaking as an observer. Like I wasn't a professional or anything. I was just someone who used to listen to these guys, and I experimented with things. I never did anything super disrespectful to any woman. I just want to put that out there. Anything. I never called a woman anything like disrespectful, or hit a woman or anything like that. Because these are
That's
things.
part of that.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
so
I will get into it.
We're jumping in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just want a full disclosure first before
Yeah.
we jump in.
Well, so I guess just to kind of set the scene, how did you get into this? How did you hear about this? What was the inspiration for this? How did you make your scene?
Yeah. So we spoke about my ex. It was really really a bad relationship for both of us. And I don't know. I must have had like some enlightening period or anything where I was like, okay, I'm not gonna get into another relationship, because before her, I was like in back-to-back
And
relationships.
how old were you?
About 19, 20 around there. No, actually, maybe like 2021. It's hard to remember. It's like so fuzzy.
Everything's a
But
blur.
yeah, but I think we broke up like right after my 21st birthday, like 2 months after, like February maybe. And I remember at the time I was working at Best Buy. There was a guy that I used to know, Carlos. Shout out Carlos. There's a guy I used to know who actually brought me into this multi-level marketing company. I've told you about that.
Yes.
That's a whole nother podcast. But anyway, so me as a young, like striving, I had goals. I wanted to be a millionaire. All these things. He was like, "You could get rich doing this." And I was just like, I had gotten into entrepreneurship and spirituality at that time. Like that was my first door into that world, which is why me and my ex broke up, because I remember sitting with her and we were watching we were watching The Secret,
Right.
and
you were trying to bring her into
the world,
into this world, or just share with her kind of what you've learned, and she completely shut it down.
shut it down. And that was kind of like the last straw. We had so many problems, but anyway. So
Shout out to your ex. No.
shout out to my so eventually, like through that process of the MLM, I met a bunch of people, and I remember one part of the MLM and why I think it was a good time for me to do that was because they were big about self-development, so like growth and reading books and things like that.
Was it mostly guys in the MLM, or was it a mix?
It was a nice mix. At least in our crew, we had a crew. We had it was called #TeamNoSleep.
Oh.
Yeah, anyway.
Okay.
So one of these guys, I remember him being like, we were talking one day, and I forgot what the conversation was, of course, but he was like, you should get these books. One of the books was a book about entrepreneurship, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then one book was called The Game by Neil Strauss. If you're listening to this, you probably know about this book. It's super famous, like super famous book. I still recommend reading it because it's such a look into a world. And mind you, Neil Strauss was a journalist who decided to really dig into this. He just ran down the white rabbit hole, like Matrix style, you know. And it is like the Matrix. I felt that, right? Like it's like I followed the white rabbit.
Like the veil was kind of
lifted, right?
from your eyes.
So I remember I buy the book. I read through that book twice because it just blew my mind that men were able to do, like these guys in the book were able to do this. Like Neil Strauss pretty much follows mostly Mystery, who was like one of the founding fathers of this whole community.
Yeah.
And through that, like I scoured the internet to find forums because I was like, I can't do this by myself. I tried.
So when you say do this, like be good with women, like talk to women, be able to sleep with them.
Exactly, because at that age, I didn't care about anything else except making money and having sex with as many women as possible.
Got it. And so at this point, when you pick up the book and you've read through the book, you were so fascinated. What was your kind of like mental state and like I guess like self-esteem? Like how do you feel you were at, like confidence level, experience with women?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the experience with women, you know, I don't think I'm bad
Fabio.
looking. I don't think I'm like the best looking, but I also don't think I'm the worst because I had natural success throughout like junior high school, even college. Like it wasn't super hard for me to talk to women. Mm-hmm. It also wasn't super hard for me to get women,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like it was just natural. But I was still pretty shy.
Okay.
I still pretty much had low confidence, especially coming out of this relationship, which was
Right.
very emotionally abusive. My self-esteem and my confidence, I came out of that relationship lower than when I got in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for me, I was looking towards these guys, at least the guys I was reading about and learning about, because I was like, wow. Like I wanted that confidence to be able to approach any woman I wanted on the street, especially New York, which has,
Many beautiful women.
so many beautiful women from all parts of the world.
Yeah.
And even like in the community, they say like New York City is the Mecca. Like, and no other city in the world is as good as New York City when it comes to doing this. So I wanted that confidence. I wanted to build my self-esteem. I wanted to be the guy who can get any girl.
Mm-hmm. And why wouldn't you? Because that's a great like thing to want, especially when you're
Right.
young, right? Like I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. There's
Yeah.
different methods that you can go about that can be, better or worse. But like having that inherent need to like be wanted or like to be super confident and to like attract people, I think that we all want that. We're
Exactly.
social creatures. I think that that's completely normal. So, anyway.
Yeah. And this was before dating apps, by the way. Like there was like a OkCupid and Plenty of Fish, which were the ones that were used, but like people still met people in like coffee shops and shit,
Bars.
you know?
Cute.
So it was like, I remember going into forums after I read the book twice, and I highlighted a shit ton of that book, because in the book, not only does he give you the story of how he got into it, how he met these guys, how he would go out to them, and instead of turning it, this book was supposed to be an article first. It ended up turning into a whole book because he ended up really getting into it and becoming one of the coaches himself.
Wow. Okay.
So
Talk about a journey.
Talk about a journey. So Neil Strauss ended up, becoming like this pickup artist master.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he writes about his journey through the book. And then like at the end, like towards the last few chapters, he kind of explains like how they do it. And it's very, very, like, this is why it was so much more prevalent to men that were like, you can say more introverted / like the techies kind of guys, because it's a formula. You know what I mean? Versus like being natural type of thing.
Right.
So it was like this formula that you had, like, you know, you have to, like, one of the things is like you have to approach a woman. You can't just say, "Hi, my name is this." You have to approach a woman with like a bomb line where she's like, "Wait, what?" And like basically they came up with all this psycho woo
Yeah, no, I want
bullshit.
to get into this, like some of the specific tactics, or maybe you could like walk us through like a specific, like maybe a very memorable like night out that you had, and like something that was like successful. Obviously, sparing me the details of like the successful ending or whatever, but like yeah, any like specific tactics. Was it like repeatable tactics or?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of my favorite tactics was called, like, it didn't have it. I don't remember the names. It's very fuzzy.
There were names to this. So it was
there
like
was so many
like
different
a course, like a like a college course.
Like, you know, like it got to a point.
Did you have like studying material?
Yes, all that.
Oh my
like,
God.
yo, and again, like context. This was over 10 years ago, so don't hate me for this. But when we were out together as men, and we were like, you know, looking around to see, we would call the women we wanted to approach targets.
Okay. Right.
So,
yeah, I don't love that, but okay.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But this is what we would do.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like target how we're going to approach. She's with friends. Oh, she's always with friends.
Jeez, you were like literally on a mission, like a video game.
It's
You're on
very,
a mission.
that's a very man thing, right?
Right, I was going to say that makes sense. It's very...
mission
this
driven.
Is so fascinating, yeah, because it's like really broken down for like the man brain to like understand and like gamified. And
that's why it was called the game.
I get it. I fucking get it.
So, you know, we would call, like, there was women we would call them to targets. We would, there's so many, like, there was like a book of like words we would use, like code in a sense.
I have so many
but
questions.
I don't remember it too much.
Was there ever a time like if you, well, one, I just think the concept of like if you're going out with like a group of men and like the group of men and you're just all like scouring a bar, I feel like that would look super creepy.
Oh yeah.
Right now, I don't know if it was creepy back
we
then.
would never
but,
go
like,
out in big groups because we didn't want to come off
look
as
creepy.
creepy.
Okay, got it. Was there ever in the same group? Did you have like two guys like acquire the same target or something? Like, what would you get into a fight, or would that be okay?
I don't think so. It would, and again, and this is coming from like, I grew up no father figure, no mentor, right? Like, for me, this was a brotherhood, and that's actually, you know, moving a little far along through the forums. I ended up finding these two guys who started this group called the Brotherhood. Okay. It was a Facebook group, private, obviously. And there were about 150 men in there. And they pretty much, I found them on a forum. I was like, I want to join this. I'm in New York City like you guys. Mm-hmm. I would love to be part of this. And they pretty much gave me a phone call and like interviewed me in a sense. Okay. Right?
So kind of like a fraternity outside of like college.
Yeah, kind of. And, you know, I ended up getting in, and they used to do like monthly meetups. Okay. And obviously the meetups would be at night, and the meetups would be at a place where you can jump between bars. Okay. There were rules, obviously. There was... you know, certain things you can and can't post on the forum. If you went out with one of the guys, like you could, like, you know, like obviously be respectful. And if you have a woman you want to talk to and one guy tries it, you pretty much say like, oh, I already tried with her. I totally failed. Like, you're good to go.
So this was like a subgroup of like the larger
yeah.
community. Okay, got it. So you found like this kind of niche, and you were like, oh, this group like seems to be kind of more my speed. I want to, but like the goal of this group was still to like
go out and pick a women. That was it.
Got it.
It was a huge, like, that's all we wanted to do. And there was many of these different groups across different cities. Okay. Because when I was scouring the forums, like LA was there, San Francisco was there, like every major city you can think about was there.
I wonder do you know like the origins of how this came about? Like, was this like, you know, like Mark Zuckerberg like created Facebook because like or I don't know, like any entrepreneur, right? Like creates like has an idea and whatever. But was this just like one guy? Was it inspired by Neil Strauss, or like was
no
it like
Mystery? What's his name? I don't remember his real name, but like Neil Strauss pretty much followed Mystery, and that was his mentor, because this was the guy who pretty much started. He used to do this thing called peacocking. There was another thing that you would do where you would wear something very elaborate and different.
Yeah.
To attract the women. In a sense. So he would like paint his fingernails. He used to wear like crazy kinds of clothing. He was in LA, so like he pretty much would meet like these goddess level women, like actresses and stuff like that, that he had relations with. And same thing, Neil Strauss was part of that crew.
It like sparks it, like it's a huge movement, right? With like a huge following. So I'm just so curious.
Yo, you don't know how big underground. This was the biggest underground thing. Like no one knew about it. Like it was very rarely talked about, at least for the first few years, until a huge scandal happened and ended up imploding. And luckily, I got out before that. That was actually, we were still together when it imploded. Okay. But yeah, like through that experience, like being in the Brotherhood, I learned about a company, a big company, one of the biggest at the time, called Real Social Dynamics. And they were the ones who would travel to different cities and do events. Like they would do free events. And through those free events, those same weekends, they would have a whole like deep dive. So they would like, during the day, they would teach you like techniques and shit. Oh my God. And then you would go out at night and do the techniques. How are they free?
Like how are they... That's what I'm so curious about. Like,
it was really expensive.
Who was sponsoring it?
No one was sponsoring it. They were like, get these hotel rooms, and I think the way they made their money is they made it free because obviously hundreds of guys would go. Okay. And we would go to hotels in the city, in New York City.
Right.
And through that, at the end, obviously, they would have like maybe about a quarter of those men sign up for, I forgot what they called it. It was called like RSD Hot Seat. Yes, so that's what it was called.
Paid program that you then
and it was very expensive. It was like $500 at the time, and mind you, $500 10, 12 years ago, right? So
it's like come join this promotional event, almost
free.
Like a
and then they would do speaking engagements, tell stories and stuff like that. Tell client stories, like do all those things. Right. Very marketing, like like really smart business moves because they would make that free. All these guys would come, they would hype you guys up. They would be like, if you're going out tonight, we'll be out. And obviously we seen these guys as kind of like gods in a sense, right? They were so good at what they did. And then they had tiers, obviously, like any other business, right? Like you would do the hot seat. And then from hot seat, you can do like, so the coaches would do like 3-on-1. And if you did the 3-on-1, that was the most expensive package. It was like $2,000.
And the like the product that they were selling, like the promise that they were giving you was like, you're gonna
get laid.
You're gonna get any woman that you want, or like you're
gonna get laid tonight. They promised that you would get laid,
but just like tonight or like whenever you want.
By the weekend.
By the weekend, okay. Yeah. But it was so interesting.
Yeah, it was crazy. Unfortunately, I never did the coaching. Obviously, I was broke. So I never did it. I'm curious,
like, if their business model was like, was it short term? Was it like over? So it's just like one coaching session and then you're going to get later. Like, is it like I wonder where the personal development aspect of it comes out.
So that was, it was like embedded in the, like, one thing that I liked about Real Social Dynamics, and I think why I continued that journey, was that they were like, the main guy, his name was, he named himself Tyler Durden. That was his nickname, by the way. I forget his real name, but obviously from Fight Club. That's where he got the name. Everyone had code names. Like Mystery, obviously, is a code name. I think Neil Strauss even had a code name.
It's also to like protect your identity because like the shit that they were doing. Was
exactly.
So sure, but yeah.
So these guys all had nicknames, and well, sorry, what was the question? I lost it.
Like, how does so talk to me about like the positives that came out of it. Like, how does personal development come into play? I'm just wondering if it was like built into the program, or if it was like you and like a few other guys pulled it out, or like there was intention.
There was like, obviously they used to say like techniques is not all that's going to get you there.
Right.
Like guys, and Tyler would talk about this very much in his videos. I watch every video he used to come out with. And whenever we went to the hot seats, not the hot seats, but the free events, he would talk about, like, you need to get fit. You need to eat right.
Yeah.
You need to read. You need to, like, if you want to...
Open up your mind,
you need to open up your mind. He's like, because if you're going to be in a conversation with a woman And let's say you're a guy that doesn't, you don't have money.
Yeah.
You don't, like, a lot of the guys that went obviously were broke like me, right? Like it was a lot of us.
Yeah.
Obviously you had the guys who made money already, who were like engineers and all this shit.
Yeah.
Which I knew a few of those guys that worked at Facebook, that worked at all the big tech companies.
Right. So there were a few people that like legitimately just needed social skills. They were okay, but it was like
Exactly.
a varying like range of
Very
men
like
that needed
huge
people.
various
So
range.
that
Yep.
I kind of like, because obviously it sounds like there were tricks and techniques and whatever, but it wasn't like all just tricks where you're like legitimately tricking women. There were certain
It started
things that
that
you
way
can't
though.
hide.
Like the whole community started, and Neil Strauss talks about it in the book. It really started with that whole regimen. They're like, learn how to play card games so that you can make. Because the whole point is like, how do you make her laugh?
Okay.
How do you make her become attracted to you, even if you're not a 10 out of 10 guy? You're not a fucking, model out of LA actor style, right? But these guys, these like, guys that aren't super attractive are getting these super hot women because they knew the psychology. And obviously where, and I'm moving a little ahead and I'll get back to it, but obviously a lot of these women that they would tell you to go for have problems. They have daddy issues. They have like traumatic things. Because for some reason, I'm like, why are all these guys getting the same type of woman?
So that's really interesting. Was that just the pattern that you noticed, or
I
were
noticed,
you
yeah.
coached to
No.
approach a specific type of woman?
No, it was a pattern I noticed based on like the guys
Interesting.
who I followed, first of all. And one of those famous guys who's the reason why I imploded, his name is Julian. And he was probably the craziest one.
Okay.
Because you had every coach, at least in RSD, that became my mecca. Like RSD was like where I learned everything for years. I was doing this for almost 4 years before we met.
Okay.
So like, you had Alex, who was like your smooth, suave Australian guy.
Calling everybody out.
Calling all of them out.
But these their real names or fake names?
Well, I don't have that last name, Alex. Good luck finding him. Right? Like, I think
Alex
he like,
RSD,
yeah,
Australian.
yeah.
Sure,
I mean,
something
you
will
can
come
find
up,
stuff on him. I honestly thought he was like the most respectable one, which is why I loved his game.
Okay.
And I follow a lot of his game because he was more of like the smooth, suave, like natural-esque.
Yeah.
Like he didn't use a lot of techniques. He used to be like, how can I be more funny?
And was he like good looking? And
he was a very good looking guy, like Australian.
So he
so
probably
the accent,
didn't need extra
exactly.
like, shitty techniques.
So these are things that I started to notice. Then you had Brad, who because Brad he was one of the first ones to leave and started his own lifestyle coaching program. Right. He was very attractive, tall, white, long hair, like very, very attractive guy.
Yeah.
He also had that natural, like his techniques weren't really techniques. It was just like, get fit,
right?
Read books, talk about, be smart, like have wisdom, have substance, make sure you have a job and all these things to make sure that like when you meet a woman, like, his whole thing, Alex was more of like long-term stuff. Like how do you meet a woman and keep her around, not just do one-night stands? Julian was like the one-night stand guy.
So it sounds like there were, yes.
Every coach was different.
Julian.
Yeah, Julian was the one who would call girls pigs. Like, I mean, the videos are out there, y'all. And the reason why was because I think he went to Japan and he did it to the wrong person. And it was like a journalist, and it ended up exploding. RSD just never came back after that. But anyway, like his stuff,
so just like zero respect for women, like all women, right? Not just like
not and obviously again, like I think he just attracted. So now he does like personal development only stuff. Like he's still around, actually.
He's still around, and people listen to him. That's disgusting.
Because he said after that experience, he kind of went under and like disappeared for like 2 years.
Oh.
And apparently, like he said, he did a bunch of like inner work, which I respect that. He was just in a dark place, I guess, in that age. All these coaches were pretty young.
Stemmed from like his own
exactly.
inner child issues that he had to deal with. So did you? Or, I mean, obviously you did, but, like, I guess at what point did you start to see maybe, like, the negative aspects of it? And, like, were you...
No,
like,
I always saw it.
You always saw it? And, like, was it, like, the unethical parts of it? Did you, like, have something inside you where you were like, I don't know about that?
Yeah, like, my... and, my intuition, I think, is personally, I think it's just pretty strong because I grew up with a lot of women around me. I think I was just taught.
Yeah.
And I just always felt wrong with certain guys that I met.
Okay.
That were doing somewhere like whether that was like Julian. Like I would listen to Julian's stuff, but I never practiced his stuff.
Okay.
Because it just didn't feel right. Like me choking a woman, which is one of the things he did. This is why he got caught, because he would literally like
consent, right? Or no?
Oh no.
That's
it was crazy.
That's horrible. How is this guy not locked up? I mean, that's
anyway, but yeah, this is I'm talking about the extremes. Obviously, he did a bunch of other things, and he would talk about like basically doing all these like really rash and like out there things. Like other guys,
predator. Like there were legitimately like guys would be predators out there. And, like,
yeah, and the problem that I found was that you have this guy who's one of the biggest coaches, by the way, for obvious reasons. Like he's doing stuff, and it's the internet, right? Like anything that's so out there and so crazy is gonna catch. It's gonna catch not someone's attention. It's gonna catch a lot of people's attention. So if like every RSD coach had their own YouTube channel, for instance, Julian's was the most followed.
But it's like, how can you publicly talk about this stuff? I know it's not.
I mean, it was
like
12 years ago.
But even still, I don't think that was that ever. I mean, I guess I don't know. I was younger, but like, was that ever okay? That's horrible.
Well, so what they did is like a lot of the videos was just him talking and telling stories. So there was no algorithm to catch that back then, right? And a lot of the footage. So they would go out in we called it the field. They would use to show in the hot seat, because actually I watched a hot seat video that my friend Shajil, remember?
Oh yeah.
Somehow got through a torrent, so he got the whole weekend. Like it was like 30 hours of footage, and I remember watching it because I was like, oh, I finally have a hot seat. I can finally see it for free instead of having to pay $500 for seat. I remember watching it, so they show a lot of actual footage. So they give these guys like, this is what I did, and I'm gonna break this down to the T. Like this is how I got this girl to come home with me. And I mean, at least they covered the woman's face. Okay. They don't show sex. Like I think a lot of the things they did was because legally they couldn't, right? Like they could get in trouble because that's someone, right? So they would cover. Usually the woman's face was blurred. And like they would show them going back to the hotel, but that was it. Like they wouldn't show them in the hotel or whatever the case may be.
But even still, it's not like they asked the woman for consent. They weren't like, "Hey, so I'm doing this thing."
No. There was no consent.
Men how to pick up women, and just happened to be
they would just wear
a successful target from today, and the woman was like, "Yeah, absolutely, sign me up."
Yeah. And guys, you would, a lot of. I'm skeptical by nature, so I would be like, oh, like, are they actually? And it's like, no, they would, because then you would see the woman in the videos. And you're like, oh, shit. Like, and
you would see the woman in the videos.
Like, they would pick up some of the women, and they would date them. And then they would tell them, like, this is what I do for a living, and the girls would be okay with it. So there was, like, even coaches that would say, like, how do you, and that's where I got the honesty piece from, and, like, being open, because, I don't know, I think it was Alex. It was one of the guys that was, like, pretty much how do you... He had a video, I think it was called, like, how do you build a harem or something like that. You know what a harem is?
No.
It's basically where one man marries multiple women or, like, has multiple women at once, and they all know.
Okay.
Or they all live together. It's very classic and very, like, old school.
Not in America.
Not in America. Yeah, but, like, basically, and I was like, ooh, what would it be like?
Is that what you wanted at the time?
I mean, I wanted all the experiences, right? Like, I wanted to try one night stands because I never had one before doing game. I wanted to have a harem and tell girls that, like, hey, I'm seeing other women. I don't want to be in a relationship right now. I wanted those experiences because I thought it was mind blowing. And one of the things they used to always say is like, we're gonna break your reality. Mm-hmm. Like we're gonna completely break your reality on like what is possible. Exactly.
So do you feel like you checked off a lot of those boxes for like the experiences that you wanted to have?
Yeah. I mean, I was able to do a few one-night stands. I was able to meet all kinds of different women that I wanted to experience, all shapes, sizes, and colors, right? like the spectrum. I was able to, meet you. I mean, this is why I think it was like game was considered horrible, but there was so many great things within it.
Can you like bullet some of the good things that you think came out of it?
Yeah, of course. Like I wouldn't be the reader. You know, we look at our bookshelves, and you know how much I read, and everyone knows how much I read. If it wasn't because of game and me wanting to prove, like, become a better man, because my goal was like, you know, I used to go out with all these guys, and I used to see guys that were really good, right? They weren't, and now, you know, obviously hindsight's 2020. They weren't really good because of their game. They were just really good naturally.
Okay.
Right? They dressed good. They made good money. Right? They were just smooth talkers.
Right.
They had experience. Right? They read books. They worked out. They looked good. Right? I was like, wait, that covers most of it. Right? Like,
they were taking care of themselves. So the whole like the secret really is just you take care of yourself, and by taking care of yourself, and these are like values that we believe in now, and this is like dating advice that we give out to people. But like if you're looking for someone, look inward, work on yourself, and then like the right person will come along. Because if you're not like, I don't know, always work on yourself. I don't want to say fix, but like improve all these aspects of yourself. And then when the right person comes along, that'll be the right match. But what you're saying absolutely makes sense, because then it's accessible to everybody. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter like where you come from or like whatever it is. Like if you work on yourself and you invest in yourself, that's attractive, like in and of itself. You're going to increase your confidence, and you're going to like attract.
That's where I gained, because I did read a few books from other coaches that like were, you know, British coaches. Like I tried to like move myself outside of RSD, and I remember reading one of the books I read that really like stuck to me after reading The Game, which I would say The Game was the one that like pulled me into the Matrix, right? And then I would say like one of the other books, I read a few books and I don't remember them all because they weren't good, but the two other books was Mark Manson's Models. It was actually his first book ever. Now a lot of people know about that. Okay. And Models was a whole like bringing the natural man into it and being like, yeah, this is not for one night stands. This is like, you want to meet a girlfriend eventually, right? And this is what you should do. So Models by Mark Manson was the book that really helped me. And then Richard LaRuna, I think his name was, wrote this book called The Natural.
Okay.
And his book was so good for me because it was simple things. It was like, this is how you dress. Mm-hmm. Like he broke it down so detailed.
This is how to be a man.
Teaching exactly. Right. And obviously I didn't have that.
Functioning adult in society.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, like dress good, look good, smell good, right? Like if you're going to go out, don't be that guy being creepy behind the girl and just being like, I'm trying to talk to you. Like realize, like, recognize me. He's like, no, approach it. And he was one of the first guys that was like, yes, you can use the pickup line. Hi, my name is. Because RSD...
That's a pickup line? I thought that's just like how you...
I mean, no, it's just how you meet somebody. But, you know, it's crazy how many pickup lines out there were. Like, and I used to try them. Like, and that's what... It was fun. You know, I used to go to Union Square in New York City. Me, Danny, Shajil, like, these are friends that Karina knows. We would go to Union Square and just like, Union Square is always busy, right?
Yeah.
We would go on like days off of work or the weekend and just approach girls and experiment with lines.
Yeah.
And like try things.
Was there anything where like you, like any memorable like rejection or any like line that you used that was like, oh, that was dumb. That's what
I mean, there were many. So I don't have one. There was one that I used. There was a few that I used that had Pokemon in it. It was I got those from the guys at Simple Pickup. I don't think their videos exist anymore, but they used to come out these funny videos of them trying these pickup lines. Like their community would challenge them and be like, pick up girls like using wrestling lines. And they would go out there and this 12 years ago, and they would be like, you know, they would just, I remember one of the guys just goes up to a girl and says, can you smell what the Rock is cooking? Like shit like that, you know, like they would just have fun with it, obviously get rejected, but I learned like, oh, rejection is part of the process.
Right.
And I'm going out there to get rejected eventually. And sometimes I would go out and be like, I'm just going to work on getting rejected, experiment with all these things. So really some things will work because some girls are very attentive to it. They would laugh and they would, you make them laugh first of all. And then you'd be like, okay, hi, my name is Ruben. And then you would end up talking to the girl for like 20 or 30 minutes, get her number, and then go on a date, which I've had those experiences, which is what I wanted from doing this, right? Like I wanted the confidence to be able to get a girl's number and then that turn into something later. Did they all you know, obviously my goal at the time was like getting laid. I didn't want a girlfriend, right? But that could happen. I had girls turn into friends, or like I had girls that ended up, you know, just like I introduced them to other guys, and the other guys ended up being successful with them,
Yeah.
or not relationship style, but like successful in terms of like getting laid or whatever.
So you said that the game by Neil Strauss, right, is what got you into it, but then you said something you were trying to get out of RSD. What was that? Like, what was that kind of turning point, or what made you want to kind of veer out of it? Because you mentioned like Models by Mark Manson and the other books.
Yep.
Like, what made
It
you
wasn't
start
only
to...
it wasn't only the books. I think it was a few things. So RSD the implosion happened with
Okay.
with Julian. Julian
Yeah.
ended up exiting RSD.
Okay.
Well, first it was Brad who exited, who was one of my favorite coaches. He left first. He was one of the first original guys that I was following. That ended up leaving and ended up going out and doing his own thing, which was the Lifestyle Academy, which I took, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't about game. That was just like how to make your life better, which was very helpful at the time for me. So Lifestyle Academy, I did that. Then Alex, which was I talked about earlier, was the other guy who ended up going out and doing his own thing as well. And I started noticing that all the coaches whom I respected, then these new coaches came in. I don't remember them obviously because I didn't like vibe with them well, and I was just like, it's just not the same for me anymore. All these original guys, except Tyler, because he was the co-founder and CEO of RSD, so like obviously he was still there. And I'm pretty sure they went through hell trying to fix the whole Julian, PR scandal that happened, and they really went underground a lot, and they ended up, you know, having to stop the free stuff. They ended up taking off all their videos from YouTube, like after that. So like they ended up just disappearing, and the brotherhood that we had, you know, we were doing that for 4 years, you know.
So was it starting to get old?
Not only that, but a lot of the guys that went into it, they got girlfriends eventually. Like, what's the point of doing all this eventually, right? Like,
so that was going to be my next question, and like, because I know, so maybe you could talk about like how we met, and then maybe what was like the turning point for you to go from. Oh, because you were dating you were seeing multiple people when we first met.
Yeah.
I guess kind of what was the thing that made you want to be like, no, let me just like focus on this one.
Well, it's a lot of pieces because like obviously I stopped watching RSD. I started to just focus on me and do my own thing and find my own books and listen to podcasts and do all that myself. And I guess like game completely just left. I think I took what I needed. I learned that I have the confidence to approach a woman. It takes me a little bit to build, right? I'm not like Shigio, whom I always admired because he was really good. I would call him the shotgun approach. He would just approach woman after woman and get rejected and get rejected. Me, it was just like I would do one, get rejected, wait a little bit because I needed to recover from that rejection and then go again, right? Like, I was never that type, but I was able to build a foundation and being like, I think I have. And the woman that I met before you, which were still kind of around when you came along, were just not girlfriend material. You know, like I was just like, I can see myself being with this woman for maybe a year and then.
But that wasn't necessarily what you were looking for, right? You weren't really looking.
I wasn't looking for any girlfriend, but I had gotten to a point that if it happens, it happens.
Okay.
And I was just like, I think, I'm not really ready for a relationship, but if it comes and I stumble into it, I wasn't forcing it.
Okay.
I didn't want to force it.
Do you think there are men out there that, I mean, I guess there are, but like that are still doing pickup
Oh, yeah.
like, are content with it, that like don't want a relationship?
Oh yeah, 100%. And you know, with the rise, you know, of dating apps, because towards the end and the last parts, like dating apps started to come on the scene. Tinder,
Yeah,
right, came on the scene, and a lot of the guys were starting to do like programs on like how do you pick up using these apps.
So okay, got it. I was gonna say, because that's super interesting, because I can see the side of pickup like before,
Still
like when
exists.
you were in it before dating apps, though. It was all about like how do you how do you make it accessible for all types of men? But then dating apps came, and it was like, oh, this is so much easier. So I feel like that can kind of fuck with especially the personal development aspect of it. I wonder like the impacts of that. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I'd be curious. I mean,
like, it's so different now. It's so easy for
it's
people,
a
which
whole
is
different game,
good and bad.
Yeah, I think it's dating apps, like anything, it's not completely evil, right? Because women are more protected.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
have the options, right? And they can the apps do their own thing to verify people.
Yeah,
like there's. Like, I think one of the verifications is, like, to make, like, oh, we need to make sure your pictures are real. So you need to take, like, a picture of yourself.
Yeah.
I think we did that, right? Like, I remember having to take a picture of myself based on the pictures that I took. And I guess they use, like, AI algorithms, some type of thing to kind of make sure that you're who you say you are.
Yeah.
So there's things like that.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I think that's amazing. But then, like, maybe some of the bad sides of it, of like making it a little bit more accessible, and the constant like choice. Like, you're on your couch at the comfort of your, like, you don't need to put yourself out there.
For me, it's just not
develop yourself.
I don't know. Like, I feel like there's something about going out to a bar, or like going to Whole Foods, which is a place we used to pick up a lot, or Barnes and Nobles, right? Like, you go out and you try to approach someone, it's an initiation in its own right. Especially as a young man, like we're so much behind these screens that, like, your social dynamics, which is why real social dynamics, right? That's why it was called RSD. So your social dynamics are not up to par. Right? Like, me, because I did that for so many years, I think my observation of my current space and who I'm looking around for is so much better than the guy who grew up behind the screen.
Right, exactly.
Because I can read people.
And just being able to have a conversation like this applies to not just dating, but like in a work environment, in an interview, in just being able to like pick up a conversation, captivate people. Like, that's an important skill to have.
Exactly.
And how do you make friendships? Like, social skills are very, very important.
It helped me a lot to break me out of my shell. And still, I'm purposely, like, introverted and quiet when I first meet somebody, because I'm still observing them. And I'm calculating, like, are they a threat? Are they good? Like, right? Like, there are all these things that I'm calculating for before I start to, like, really talk to them and become more comfortable, right? And I learned most of that through doing this, right? And, like, if I was to date, it's not hard for me to meet a woman and literally keep a conversation going forever. Because I learned that through the game. Is like, I literally watched so many videos on, like, how to infinitely have a conversation, like how to ask questions. Like, there were things that they taught me that I still use to this day, right? So
I have one final question for you, but is there any other thoughts or anything that you wanted to touch on that we didn't cover?
No, we didn't really cover a lot of the brotherhood, but...
Do you want to talk about that?
No, I said no. But yeah, because, like, it was so crucial, and this is why, and I'm talking to the men that are listening here, like, it's so crucial to have some kind of community like that. For men. And it doesn't have to be pickup. That was just my initiation into having brothers and guys that I get along with, have fun with. Because you grew up
around women.
But because I grew up, exactly. I was lacking that masculine energy connection, right? And having that and being able, because at some point we stopped going out only to pick up with women. Excuse me. There were times that we just went out to hang out, and if we saw a pretty girl, like, the guys would approach, or whatever the case may be. But that wasn't the goal. Like, the goal was, like, we're building community. I remember going to play pool with them. We went out to, like, eat together a few times. Like, I remember the guys who started the brotherhood. I forget their names now, but but they were great guys. They were like they started hosting just events where it was not pickup related, where it was just like, let's just hang, let's just do like 10 guys would go out and just shoot the shit. I think that's important, and just being able to like, when you had a successful night, being able to go to guys and be like, this is what I can tell the story.
Yeah.
I can tell somebody because I'm ecstatic that this happened, right? I'm happy that what I've been learning worked.
And that's so important because women do that too. I always say like the most exciting part about like dating or like meeting a guy is then like going back and telling my like best friend about it, and like you go through all of the details.
Exactly.
So I think it's important for men to be able to have the same kind of space.
And that's what we had, right? Like we had all that. And hello, Copper. He's in the video. If you're listening guest. Only, special guest Copper, welcome. And also, if you want to be successful on dating apps, put a dog picture. If you're a guy, and you will get a lot more.
But make sure it's your dog, because
make sure it's your dog.
That's fucking weird.
Yeah. Like if you have a dog, I'm saying. Like if you don't have a dog, you a lot of girls are gonna be like, "What the fuck, dude? Like you tricked me. I thought you had a dog." Anyway,
I'm gonna ask my question.
Yes.
Okay, so final question: if you were to give, taking everything that you've learned. Through this experience, so if you're speaking to kind of the young men right now, and if you were able to kind of just like give 3 pieces of advice, like the best things that you learned, but obviously in like the ethical way, so just some kind of tips that young guys can take now instead of like going into the pickup artistry, but like what are 3 pieces of like ethical advice that you can give to young men that are struggling with like dating or meeting women?
The first ethical piece is be honest. I feel like a lot of what I found in that community back in the day was guys would lie, including myself. I lied a lot, to get it to like if a girl would ask a certain thing, or like guys would lie because like they were a waiter at a restaurant, so they would tell them like I'm an investment banker or some shit. Like there were things like that I seen a lot, and they would keep those lies going, and they had to tell like elaborate stories. That was actually one of the pickup artists, not RSD, another guy would do a lot, unfortunately. But it's being honest. Like it's gonna suck because a lot of women it's hard for, especially if she's still has a lot of trauma, hasn't done the work herself.
Right. If she can't accept the truth, can't hold it.
And she can't hold it and be like, this is uncomfortable, but I'm grateful that he's telling me this because it shows that he has character. Yeah. He has a value. And it's just ethical, right? Like that's where I got from. I became being unethical, where I used to date multiple women and tell them, no, I'm not seeing other women. Obviously I am. Versus like when we met, all the women that I was talking to, including you, all knew that I was seeing other women. Did they know who they were? No. They didn't ask, like, who is she, right? Like, most of them would be like, okay, like, I guess we're in this space. But most of them I found they weren't looking for something either. So it just worked for us at that time, right? So being honest is, like, definite number one. Like, tell them the truth. Obviously, there's a way to tell the truth where you're not just like, I'm going to be an asshole and hurt your feelings like really bad. Right. It's like, no, it's like a plane landing. It has to be slow and steady. You know what I mean? Like you got to let them ask questions before just vomiting the whole thing on them. Right. Yep. Like when I told you I was dating other women, I wasn't like, these are the names. Oh God. These are how many. Yeah, I didn't give you all this is how many times I see them a week. Right. Like, I didn't give you all the details. I just gave you enough where you can handle it because you have to respect the other person's feelings. Yes. Right? Yes, and this is not like current day, like everyone's feelings get hurt. Like this person's feelings is going to be hurt already, even with the minimum you give them, probably. And based on like how they feel and what they want to know, they'll ask questions and you tell them based on what they need to know. So being honest, 100% number one. Is just a way to go right now. 2 is and this may be controversial, but it's like, I don't think you should date until you figure your shit out. I love that. I think, and I got this from my man, Jesse, who used to be the co-host of this podcast. He took, I think, almost close to 6 to 8 months around there. No woman, like no dating, just straight up worked on himself. Reading, hitting the gym, learning, right? Like, because he wanted to have his own business, which he has now. Like, like no porn, no masturbation, just completely removed himself.
So like super disciplined. Just
Super.
like
He went into what we call monk mode. And I think every man should experience that kind of monk mode. I never experienced it for that long, but I've done it for like 30 days. Where it's just like no woman, no nothing, and just do your own thing. I think every man needs to experience that, especially if you're young, because it would teach you discipline, and you need to have that discipline in order for you to be honest, in order for you to, you know, really build confidence, is to have that. Because once you're confident within yourself and your own inner dialogue is good to you, it'll be able to showcase outside
and you're having integrity with yourself. Like when
exactly.
you do what you say you're going to do, then you're honoring your body, and that builds confidence.
You're honoring everything. You're honoring your spirit, your heart, your mind. Like you're honoring yourself 100%. So I think that's also super important. Just giving yourself that time. Like, you know, I wish I did that. Like I wish I did that when I was younger, because all I cared about was getting girls, right? And a lot of guys do it, right?
Because we're just driven by our hormones, and we need like a guide to.
We need a guide, which I didn't have, right? Like I wish I had an older man who was able to say, like, "Hey,
like a healthy,
conscious, masculine man," which I hope to be to many young boys, right, and young men. It's to say, like, hey, do you think this is working for you? Like, what about your future? You know, at that time, I wasn't thinking about my future. I had no purpose. I had no goals, right? Like, I was just thinking on when's the next time I can get laid, you know, or how can I make more money? Like, that's all I cared about. But in order to make the more money, you need to do the work. So I was just in a vicious cycle anyway. So that's number 2. And then lastly, I would say to just experiment. Like, yeah, these things, like what I did, a lot of it I'm probably not happy about, right? Like all the things I experimented with, or like stupid things I've said
like
to strangers. The pickup stuff, yeah. Or just even being in that world and like being doing crazy shit, you know what I mean? Like stupid shit.
Crazy shit.
Like going up and like hitting a girl's drink. I've done that before.
Oh my god.
Like just like going up to the bar and she just got a drink and just poking it and just looking at and just like staring her deep in the eye.
Trying different things.
Just trying different things and being completely stupid about it. Like there's stupid things to do, but
I feel like I don't see that going well with anyone.
No, exactly. But it was more so to like to bring yourself in that space of like, I'm about to do a lot of uncomfortable things. So what's the most uncomfortable thing I can do first? Like eat the frog type of thing. And then everything else will be easier, right? Okay. That's just one example. There were many things that I did, whether that was like yelling in a bar, like just random shit. Like playing the what is it called? The penis game?
Oh, from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, we used to do that. Like that was one of the things we've done. Anyway, just like do the most uncomfortable thing first to get you out of your body, because that was one of the things we used to teach each other.
Out of your head.
Yeah,
right?
and that comes actually, we got that from Tony Robbins, because the head guy of Tyler of RSD, he loved Tony Robbins. Like, that was his guy, you know? So a lot of Tony Robbins, that's what I learned about Tony Robbins, actually. And one of Tony Robbins' things is get out of the state. And I think this was great advice. I think that, you know, the last thing is to understand, like, when you are in that state, how to get out of it immediately. Like, do something that will get you out of it. And it's the whole thing. Like, entrepreneurs talk about this, like, eat the frog first thing in the morning. Like, do the hardest thing first. And it's like, well, if you're looking to meet women, mostly you'll be doing it on apps now. But, like, what's the best thing? Like, oh, you know, like, how can you take lead of the conversation? Or, like, how can you make sure you do the uncomfortable thing? It's easier through our app, unfortunately. But, like, no, use the apps. And still, when you see a woman, you're in fucking Whole Foods or the supermarket, wherever you're at, you're on the street, like, say hi.
Yeah.
Tap her. Have a conversation. Get rejected.
Yeah, I think there's
a
respectful way to, like, go and approach women. Like,
hi, I'm name.
I have name, yeah. Because, I mean, I'm sure I can can speak for all women here. Like we do want to. Well, okay, let me not speak for
The
all
feminine
women. I
women.
guess. Yeah,
The
yeah.
women who are in their femininity.
That's true. Yeah,
Not in their masculinity.
Feminine women would like to be like approached respectfully, especially if you're looking for a relationship, or even just like looking for like if you're a social person and you want to meet somebody. Like it doesn't have to be sexual or anything, but like if you're a man and you come and you want to talk to a woman, like I think that's still okay in today's age. I think it's a little bit trickier now. As long as you approach it with good intentions, with like respectful.
And that's the thing, good intentions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Women can like smell.
Oh, absolutely.
Your
we
intention,
have intuition.
exactly.
We know, we can sense a bad vibe. We might not fully understand it. It might click a little bit later, but like if you're coming at it from like a sneaky or like bad perspective of like I'm desperate, especially we smell desperation, or like you're just trying to sleep with us, we can fucking tell immediately. So that's not going to happen. But if you come at it from maybe you're just improving your social skills, or maybe you just want to compliment a woman again, like genuinely, not like wow, nice ass, but like something like
which I've done too. I've done that too. I've said that. It never works, by the way.
But something like, or even like obviously we're in a relationship, but like sometimes I'll get like somebody will say to me like, oh, you look really beautiful today, and I'm like, thank you, and I receive that compliment and I appreciate it, and that's really sweet, and like so I just think intentions matters.
Yes.
Your intentions matter, and like come at it from a good place, develop your social skills,
right.
Be respectful.
Yeah, so that's where my three come, right? Like one is be honest, but that's also like being respectful, like right away, right? Like
of course,
that's how you gain respect, is by being honest, right? And even if you approach a woman and say, "Hi, my name is, John," and just use that. I'm talking to you because I thought, I saw you. You're absolutely beautiful.
Love that. That's
Done.
Instant success.
Done. Like you're honest. You're respectable. Yeah. Don't do it at night when she's walking alone in a random place. Right. Like obviously that's not the right time. Timing is everything. Context is everything. Yeah. Right. Like I knew that even coming in. Like, and the guys. The guys I followed all said that too. Like, it needs to be. In a club it's okay. Maybe in a supermarket.
Right. Read the room.
Read the room, exactly. Understand. Is she with somebody? Like, you can kind of tell when someone's with somebody. You just like, don't be creepy observing, but like, is she by herself? I don't know. I've approached a lot of women that thought were by themselves, and then they had a boyfriend, and the boy would come, and then I have to deal with that too, which is super uncomfortable. And I highly recommend any man go through that because it's interesting. So it's great, by the way. Like, I think that's one of those things that like, oh, you ate the frog, now you could do anything. You know what I mean? Like,
what advice would you give for someone who's like, who's taking this advice and they're like, okay, I'm going to talk to someone and like come at it from good intentions and like be super respectful, and they get rejected? How do you deal with that?
I mean, you deal with it. You eat that rejection. I used to keep a count. I mean, I lost count of how many rejections I've received, but I remember I used to keep a tally on my phone. Yeah. So I would like rejection 1, and I would just put a bunch of ones in my notes.
So you gamified it.
I gamified. I had to, because it was just, no matter how many times, like, you get rejected so much, it really fucks with you.
That's
like,
what I was
at the end of the night.
Yeah. How do you let it not fuck with you?
That's when good friends come. Like,
okay. So like, talk about it with your friends.
Talk about it with your friends. Like, we used to do, like, what was great about the brotherhood is that guys would talk about their nights. They will give a night report. It was great. And you would read their report. It was great to see what other guys were going to, especially if you thought, like, we're always judging.
Study. Oh my
God. We're always judging one another. Not judging, but we're always like, oh my God, like, that guy, he looks way better than me. He's taller than me. He's bigger than me. Like, guys are always like he's bigger than me. He looks better than me. Like, oh, he's smooth, or like, we would do that a lot in the game. But then when you see, like, it humbles both of you, actually. Like, you see that same guy that you're like, man, this guy's so good. He's definitely getting it tonight. And you realize, like, he's been working on it for 6 months and he had never gotten laid in those 6 months because, like, and you're like, fuck, like, I thought he was more successful than me. And he's not. He's going through he's going through it right now. And they were, the guys were, I loved it because we were so supportive of one another. Like, hey, man, like, here's what's helped me, or like they will ask questions to make sure, like, hey, I noticed that you keep trying these things and they're not working. Like, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And we will all support one another in getting better at our game, right?
Love that. So it's that community aspect.
It's that community aspect, and it's good to find that. And there's a lot of ways you can find that. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be quote unquote game, right? It's just you being, it's a part of who you are. You just like to approach people that are interesting. That's where I got to a point where I was like, I like to approach people that are interesting. I still do it to this day. If I go to an event, a conference, like I see someone interesting, I heard them say something, I'll go up to them and be like, hey, that was interesting what you said. I'd love to learn more. Da, 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 da. And if it goes well, you connect with them on whatever social media, or no one grabs each other's numbers anymore. It's like, yeah, let me get your Instagram, let me get your LinkedIn, or whatever the case may be. There are so many ways to like take that and like use it as a learning lesson, which is what we did a lot when we were in the Brotherhood. So having that community is so crucial to making your game better. And I'm talking about game of life, like not just game picking up girls, just game of life, which I started to realize, like, oh, all this, it's just a game of life. Like what I'm learning in pickup so easily transfers, right? Especially when at the time I was in sales, and I like used a lot of those tactics in sales, and they worked. And I was just like, huh, it transfers, So it's just do those three eventually. Like, be honest. What was it? Be honest. I already forgot. Sorry, y'all.
You went on a rant.
Okay.
Be honest. Work on yourself. So be a monk.
Be a monk.
Be honest. Become a monk, and then try different things. Yeah, and then have a group of brothers to kind of keep you sane.
Yes.
Have community.
Have community. It's super important. So.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Well, this was super insightful.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm happy that it sounds like from your experience, this was kind of just like a portal for you to get into like the personal development space, like work on yourself. And, like with everything happens for a reason. This was like a stepping stone to like you becoming the man that you are today.
Exactly. And that's what it all is. It's always a stepping stone. I'm grateful that like the dark parts don't exist anymore. They probably do in some shape or form.
Yeah.
There are things, they have the red pill, and there's things beyond the red pill. There's like the black pill, the white pill, there's so many that do get into the darker aspects. So I feel like game has transitioned into this the manosphere, they call it. So there are still aspects of this that exist, but I always say, like, be careful who you follow. That whole Julian thing, like, I could imagine how many guys just like got shit for that. I've heard of guys get arrested for doing stuff like that, right? Harassment or things like that they got arrested for.
Well, just don't be a horrible person.
Yeah, don't be a horrible person. Like, listen to the right people.
Treat people with respect,
and
men and women.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I don't want to belabor the point. We can end it here. I hope this was a good one to everyone. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe on YouTube, follow on all platforms if you're listening, and leave us a comment, a 5-star review. That'd be great.
5 stars only.
5 stars only.
No other stars.
Yes. I hope you enjoyed this. Any last words from you?
No. This was really cool. Thanks for having me on.
Always. All right, y'all. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
And then do you clap?